emotional dysregulation. It's another one of those sort of hidden symptoms of ADHD that affects a large amount of us to a large degree, and yet you probably never even heard of it. I hadn't before about a year and a half ago. So that's how little the public knowledge is of it. Yet it's one of the hardest things about having ADHD. While flooded with one emotion, tend to forget about other relevant emotions, can gobble up all the space in their mind, like a computer virus, where the emotional reaction doesn't match the nature or the seriousness of the trigger. People with ADHD can have a great deal of difficulty distinguishing between dangerous threats and minor problems. So many times they overreact and need to be talked off the ledge, off the ledge, because our brains are not regulating all those emotions and thoughts as well. Does that ring true for anybody? I hope it does. Well, I mean, I hope you don't have any of these problems, but it's important that you know that there's a cause. There's a cause. And it's not that you're unstable. For me, it's like, well, my husband and I are arguing, and I'm convinced he doesn't even really care. And he's always like, what? I'm like, I know. But at the time, that's what I feel like. It's all been a lie. The rational part of my brain says, you know that this is not a big deal. And the other part of my brain's going, I'm getting divorced. We'll never be able to stay together. I have to leave or something. It's a self-test. We're going to take it. Do you experience sudden, intense bouts of extreme sadness when you think you have been rejected or criticized? I do. There's very often, sometimes, rarely, never. Are you your own harshest critic? Yes, you are. Do you feel anxious in social situations because you assume that no one likes you? This is going to ring some bells. Very often, sometimes, rarely, never. Do you consider yourself a people pleaser, going above and beyond to get on someone's good side? Yes, very often. Often, sometimes, rarely, never. Do you pass up opportunities or avoid starting projects because you're afraid you'll fail? I'm not laughing at anyone, but I better see some hands go up. I'm just saying. They're not alone in this. Have you been called overly sensitive or a head case because of your strong emotional reaction? Do you dedicate more time than is necessary to a project or become perfectionistic to make sure your work has no mistakes and is above reproach? Very often, sometimes, rarely, never. Do you feel shame about the lack of control you have over your emotions? Oh, yes. Before you were diagnosed with ADHD, were you told you might have a mood disorder or a borderline character disorder? This is not a mood disorder, because mood disorders, they seem to stem from earlier trauma, or they don't know. These are, with ADHD, it's a trigger. It's an absolute obvious trigger. Do you shy away from close friendships or romantic relationships because you worry that if people knew the real you, they wouldn't like you? Do you assume the worst in commonplace interactions, worrying you'll be fired every time your boss calls you into her office, for instance? You think that you cannot go on feeling this way? I have thought that before. Do you avoid meeting new people or trying new things because your fear of rejection and criticism is so strong? It's been my whole life, and I just didn't realize it with my husband, and we were dating. In high school, we were at this big park, like this party thing in a park at night. And I remember thinking, I'm leaving. I can't stay here. And it was like out by a lake. And I remember I started walking. I walked through the parking lot. Like I said, it was dark, so people didn't really even see me. And started walking around the little windy roads, walking. And I remember thinking, I'm just going to walk. I'm walking. If someone kidnaps me, I don't care. Hoping that you guys still respect me at all, because I'm just being honest. It makes no sense. And I remember at the time thinking, you're crazy. This is crazy behavior. Some kids were driving by and saw me and said, Kristen, what are you doing out here? I said, get in the car. And I went and found Mike, and I don't remember anything after that. It was fine. Who does that? And that's evidence of it. And it's still, to this day, getting better at it a little bit as I've worked on all these different things, making my brain aware of what's going on. But that instinct is still there, like, I'm going to go. It's common but misunderstood and under-researched symptom of ADHD in adults. This RSD sets it apart from normal emotional responses because it's like this unbearable intensity. Really high standards for yourself. Feeling easily triggered toward guilt or shame. Isolating yourself in order to try to not be rejected. Feeling frequently an uncomfortable physical reaction due to not fitting in. I know some of you have said that. Or being misunderstood. Self-esteem that is entirely dependent on what others think. And I'm working on that one. Are you? I'm on Psychology Today, just in case any of you want to see that. Sudden emotional outbursts, following real or perceived criticism or rejection, withdrawal from social situations. I did that. Negative self-talk leads them to become their own worst enemy. How many of y'all would say you're your own worst enemy? I know there are a lot of you. Right there with you. If you constantly feel attacked and responsive and responding defensively, saying, can we just say we aren't the emotion, we have the emotion. Therapy is helpful, or just doing things like this where we're acknowledging it and we're helping our brains know this is what's happening so that it doesn't amp up in our minds. If you can just observe yourself having the emotion and the thoughts instead of like, this is who I am, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I am, it's true. If we can go, okay, I'm feeling this way. Do you see how it gives you a little bit of a separation? It's sort of like pushing some distance between who we are and how we're feeling and what the thought and the emotion is. And now I'm like, if I start to do it, and almost immediately I go, you're doing it again, you're throwing a fit, and this happened before, and did anything horrible happen after that? No. Your life will go on. Your mind is exaggerating it. It's helpful to know that this highly disruptive experience is real and common and shared by other people with ADHD. It helps to know that what is happening to me happens to other people, and I know what it is, and that it is going to end. That's what's made the difference for me. No dysregulation, you crazy thing. It helps you kind of separate yourself from what you feel like is just taking over. And now I'm like, if I start to do it, and almost immediately I go, you're doing it again, you're throwing a fit, and this happened before, and did anything horrible happen after that? No. Your mind is exaggerating it. Guanfacine and clonidine. Oh, that's probably Klonopin. The symptoms are significantly relieved with these two drugs in about 60% of adolescents and adults, which is pretty high. Putting on emotional armor, it helps you to just sort of watch it. The trigger happens, and you're able to not feel wounded about it. The people often report with time, they come to realize that this armor, I came to see that the arrows I was protected from were not arrows to begin with, like a buffer of some sort. You're able to say, oh, that wasn't really, they weren't threatening me, they weren't rejecting me, they were just stating opinion about blah, blah, blah. That I think that we can start to, well, I know we can because I've started to do it a little bit, not every time. Because I can go, okay, you had the feeling, later this is not going to feel like this. Why ADD makes you feel so much. We can spend more time on this if y'all find it really helpful. Okay, good night.